Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our HealthLinks webinar today. My name is Michelle Hahn, and I'm the Program Manager for HealthLinks. And I really love putting together these monthly webinars with the rest of our team so that we can give you some more tools and resources to help you build a culture of health, safety, and well-being for your employees. Today, we'll be talking about how to boost engagement and productivity using the 6 dimensions of wellness model. But before I hand it over to our speaker for today, I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. So first of all, we're going to keep everybody on mute throughout the entire presentation just so that we can limit any noise and feedback and distractions. So if you have questions, feel free to use your chat box, or there's a question box as well in your control panel, which should have popped up on the right-hand side of your screen. And we'll make sure that there's time at the end to answer all of those. There will be a section of the presentation where our presenter will ask a poll question for you, and those can be typed directly into the chat box, and she'll field them and answer them as she's giving her presentation. So keep that in mind as well. And just to let everybody know, we will be recording the webinar today, and we'll share the link for the recording that will include the slides tomorrow after the webinar is completed. And you can also access the link for this webinar and all of the rest of our webinars on our HealthLinks website at healthlinkscertified.org. Just click on the Healthy Business tab and you'll see our webinars listed there. So with that, let's get started. So today I'm very excited to introduce our speaker to you. Kim Farmer is the owner of Mile High Fitness and Wellness and has successfully grown the company for the past 8 years. She manages wellness educators, personal trainers, and group exercise instructors in their classes and clients. Kim is very passionate about what she does and is always looking for ways to take her skills and expertise to the next level. We connected with Kim almost 4 years ago now when we first launched HealthLinks, and she has been a great advocate and a champion alongside us to help promote health and safety all across our state. And one of my favorite things about Kim is getting to meet her at different conferences. She does a lot of activity breaks for the conferences around the state, and it's amazing to watch how her fun self can get 300 people in a room to do some Zumba alongside her, even if they're wearing some high heels or dressed in suits. She's just really fun and passionate, and I'm really grateful that she could be here today, and I'm looking forward to what she has for us. So with that, and without further delay, I'm going to hand it on over to Kim. Kim, take it away.
Thank you so much, Michelle. That was such a great introduction. I wasn't expecting that at all. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited and very, very passionate about supporting HealthLinks and very passionate about what I do. And today I'm excited about giving this presentation because in all of the years that I've been helping companies with their wellness programs and helping individuals with their own individual fitness and nutrition programs, one of the things I've learned is that companies seem to struggle a lot with getting their employees excited and as engaged as they are in their programs. And with as much money as we're spending on our wellness programs, I thought, gosh, there's got to be a better way. So I wanted to, for those of you that are out there that don't know me, I want to give you, oh, my computer just locked up on me. Wow, what timing. Give me 1 second, Michelle. I don't know what's going on. I'm pressing. There we go. Okay. So I wanted to give you just a little background about who I am and where I came from, because it does kind of set the foundations for what I'm going to talk about today. You can kind of read through the certifications I have and all that stuff, but that's not what I want to point out. What I want to point out is that in all of the years in dealing with people on an individual level and in small group settings, I've really come to understand what it takes for behavior change. I've been a health coach and a personal trainer, a nutrition coach, exercise expert, and all those good things for a lot of years. But before that, I was an electrical engineer designing network communications, which is totally different than what I'm doing now. But in doing that, I had the opportunity to be an employee. I worked for several companies as an employee. I got to choose whether or not I participated in the wellness program. I got to see the result of what happens when companies get bought or sold, excuse me, or as they merge, what happens to morale levels I mean, I remember even today, there's a lot of companies being bought and sold, but back then, I just remember morale levels going down the tubes when those types of things happen. And even myself, I got laid off several times from telecommunications companies, which is how I started getting into what I'm doing today, just wanting to be more active. So I really had a chance to see what happens inside of companies when those things happen. I got to see why people don't engage in certain programs. I was also a sales representative. That allowed me the opportunity to work with people one-on-one and really figure out what are their problems, what are their pain points, how I could be a resource to help them. And those things, I think, lend themselves well to helping people that are on wellness committees understand how to reach out to their staff members, either on a one-on-one level or in a small group setting. These pictures I have up here, I wanted to point these out because as I work with people, I start to realize, we need to put together things and programs for them that include things that they love to do. So as Michelle mentioned, I teach Zumba, so I have a picture of me up there doing Zumba. I teach it strictly for the fun of it. I can't even believe I get paid to do it. I have a picture of me and my son up there. We ran a race, and that just, I wanted to show that so that I can demonstrate how passionate I am about helping younger generations because they're our future leaders. And I feel like we can all play a part in that. And then I have a picture of my favorite athlete up there, Serena, because I absolutely love to play tennis. And as I'm speaking with people, I need to really dig deep and figure out what it is that they love to do. So these are some of the things I want to discuss today. I'll talk about wellness programs in general. I want to talk about where they came from because it lays a foundation in terms of how we got to where we are today with wellness programs. I want to talk about the difference between disengaged and unengaged workers. There's a difference, and there's a way that we can kind of curtail the effect of those types of things when we have disengaged workers at the workplace. I'll talk a little bit about trends in wellness. I recently went to a presentation, and the presenter was talking all about how, as business owners, we need to be on top of trends. We can't continue to do the same things over and over every year. We need to figure out where our industry is headed. And I feel the same way when it comes to wellness programs. If we want to stay ahead, we want to stay competitive, then we need to know what's going on in the industry as a whole. I'll talk about shared values. I really think that that's really, really important when it comes to wanting to play a role as a resource in someone else's life. Very much like, if you can imagine, a married couple. I know personally, me and my husband, sometimes we just have value conversations to make sure we're on the same page, because if we're not, then that's when the bickering and things like that start. And we just have to take a step back and say, wait a second, let's just look at our values. And I think that if we have shared values within our organization when it comes to not just wellness programs, but just where we're going, and make sure that's communicated out to our staff, I think that makes a difference. I'll give you a list of the reasons why I think wellness programs aren't working and what we can do about that. EAPs, I'm a big believer in EAPs, and I think that if we can learn to integrate our EAP programs more into our wellness programs, boy, I think that would make a big difference. And then, of course, I'll talk about the six dimensions of wellness. But before I get started, I want to throw out a question to you guys so I can just get a feel for who's on the call. I want to know how many of you guys have a wellness program out there. If you can just type in your comment box, yes or no, that would be great. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Well,
they're coming in.
For some reason, I'm not seeing. Oh, do you see them coming in?
Yep. There are so far about 5 people that have said that they have wellness programs on our call.
Okay.
Oh, a lot. Most everybody. There's one person that said no.
Okay.
One person said they're kicking theirs off next week.
Okay.
Yeah, most everybody on the call has a wellness.
Most everybody does. Okay. Okay, great. I think that's wonderful. Even if your wellness program is, you have a newsletter, or I've seen companies that have where they recognize certain holidays. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Healthy Weight Week is the week of January 16th. So that's coming up. That's something that you could potentially recognized within your organization. Women's Healthy Weight Day is January 19th. So there's a lot of things that we can do to promote wellness in our organization. And Michelle, I don't know what's going on, but my computer, if I press the space bar, there we go. Okay. So what does the Center for Disease Control recognize as a wellness program? Well, this is their definition. They say that it's a coordinated and comprehensive set of health promotion and protection strategies implemented at the worksite that include programs, policies, benefits, environmental supports, and links to the surrounding community designed to encourage the health and safety of all employees. So this is probably something that larger, I see a lot of medium to larger size companies that are able to do a lot of these things. I see smaller companies, they might just be able to, like I said before, have a newsletter, or they have a yoga class, or they might have a relationship with a local gym or something of that nature. Whatever it is, I'm glad that you have it in place, and I feel like we can do things to make it better. And whatever you do have, I know that there's strategies that we can put in place to make sure that you have the participation that it deserves. So where did wellness programs come from? Well, they started off really as workmen's compensation programs with back when we had a lot of railroad workers and mining workers, a lot of labor workers, out there, and they recognized that they were getting injured a lot and having overuse injuries, so they started workmen's comp programs. That's really where it all started. And then after that, it led into recognizing that our C-level executives were experiencing high stress levels, and even back then, they recognized that fitness programs are really an antidote for stress levels, so they decided to bring in fitness programs strictly for executives. And that was back in the 40s. And the other thing that happened in the 40s is that EAPs were introduced, but they were only in place to help curb alcoholism and drug use. But then eventually they spread into the 1970s to include all kinds of emotional problems closer to what you see today. The Global Wellness Institute estimates that wellness is a $40.7 billion industry. Boy, have we come a long way from where we started, but unfortunately, the results have been largely intangible, and our programs aren't including most of the world. So only 9% of the world it has wellness programs. And I think that that's because when you look at the world as a whole, there are a lot of rural locations out there. There's a lot of workers that are part-time and don't get to participate, et cetera. So I think that that's where that number comes from. But we certainly can do more to engage our employees, because only 54% of full-time employees say that their employer offers a wellness program. So that's about half of people even realize that their employer offers it. And then of that 54%, only 2/3 participate. And of that 54%, well, of the 2/3 of the 54%, 30%, only 30% say that it helps them actually improve their overall wellness. That's not good enough for me. I feel like with the money that we're spending and the time and the resources and energy, we should definitely be doing a better job. And I think that we can. Sadly, 58% believe that the wellness program is in place because it's a cost-cutting measure to benefit the company. And it is, I understand, we're companies, we're in business to make a profit. We put programs in place that will help us to do that. But at the same time, hopefully we care about the health of our employees, not just because it saves us money, but because we want them to be happy and healthy and come to work and excited to be there. So that tells me that there's a lot of employees out there that are cynical. They don't trust us. They don't believe that our employers care about us. And so we've got to figure out how to re-engage our employees. Earlier, I talked about disengaged versus unengaged. I kind of see it as, if you think about your cable at home, how it can be disconnected or how it can be unconnected. And I feel like unconnected means, okay, you make a call to Comcast or something and you say, hey, I need to get my cable turned back on, something happened. And they say, okay, great. And they can just do that over the phone. Whereas disengaged is your cable is just cut off. Maybe you haven't paid your bill in months, and they just cut you off, and you got to maybe call and start over. It's just another hassle. It's a little bit harder than just a phone call. To me, that's kind of the difference between an unengaged worker and a disengaged worker. Unengaged is they're excessively tardy. You notice that they're missing more work than normal, or maybe they're just doing the bare minimum of work, just barely doing it, right? Disengaged is way worse than unengaged. This is where we do not want to go. If we can stop the buck at unengaged before it gets to the level of being disengaged, where you've got someone that may even challenge company practices or sabotage aspects of the company, they're completely unmotivated and they have no enthusiasm to grow with the company. According to a Gallup study, 31.5% of workers are engaged in their jobs. 17.5% were actively disengaged. That's not good news to me. We need to be meeting with our workers way before it gets to that point. Hopefully we are doing that, and we're getting the feedback to figure out, once we realize that our rock star that we hired, who was just going to be a superstar for us, all of a sudden you're seeing a decline in the quality or the quantity maybe of their work. Maybe it takes them forever to complete a simple task, or they don't complete anything at all. It could be stemming from poor management or a lack of recognition when they do get jobs completed. These types of disengaged workers are the type that could potentially retaliate against management, demotivate other workers, and just kind of be a fester in the office and cause problems in the workplace. So if we can start to have those conversations with that previous rock star, they were a rock star that came in at first and they were really, really excited to be there. And then over time, you kind of notice that things have kind of gone downhill. We need to step in and start getting feedback about that, because it's costing us money. According to Gallup, it's costing us over $2,000 per year per employee when we have someone who is disengaged at work. And that's just a dollar sign, right? So there's other things that come along with disengaged workers that cause us to lose, well, I guess it does cause us to lose even more money, because we lose productivity. And to me, that means money, right? If someone's there at work and we're paying them for their time and they're not being productive, isn't that costing us money? You bet. 37% lower job growth. And over time, our profitability just tends to go down. So if we can recognize that happy employees tend to be productive employees, and we can figure out how to make our employees happy, then I think we're on the right track.
Hey, Kim.
Earlier I talked about trends and
Kim, I'm going to interrupt you really quick.
Yeah.
A question related to that last slide. Can you repeat what the Gallup poll, the percentage of disengaged workers is that you shared?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, let me go back to that. Oh, so according to Gallup, the percentage of disengaged workers were 17.5%.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So according to, earlier I mentioned about trends, right? And I said, we need to figure out what's going on in our industry so that we can stay either on the curve at least, or ahead of the curve if possible. So these are some of the trends that are affecting wellness at work. And I know that all of you can read, so I won't read through everything, but I do want to point out a couple of things on the slide. First of all, I don't know about you, but it seems like these days, every time I look around, a company is either being bought, sold, or merged. And that, to me, threatens job security. Like I told you before, when I worked in corporate America, if I ever heard about a merger or our company being bought or something like that, I went to monster.com because I felt like I needed to be being ahead of the game, because I felt like I was going to get laid off. So workers are insecure. That's one thing. The other thing I want to point out is about the multi-generational workforce. Many of you may have heard about how millennials are really the largest working population right now. It used to be the boomers, but now it's the millennials. Millennials are, they consider themselves to be free agents. They're not like baby boomers, where I remember, for me, talking to older relatives that are boomers, and they would always say, oh, I stayed at the phone company for 25 years. And they stay at their companies for years and years and years. And it's just not that way anymore. Even for me personally, going from, engineering to what I'm doing today, I really don't think that younger generations have planned to stick around in the same position for years and years and years. It doesn't mean that they won't necessarily stay in the same company, but they want the opportunity to move around. So if there's any way that you can make it so that the younger generation has that opportunity, I think that that would increase retention and increase what they feel like is important to them, which is their ability to use the multiple skills that they feel that they have and somehow relate that to their purpose. They really value being connected to a company where they can tie in their own individual purpose and see how their skills can help the vision for the company. Also, the fact that boomers are retiring later and later, from what I hear, that affects things, which is a great thing, right? Because boomers are the ones that have all the experience and all the skills. So the fact that they're sticking around, I don't know if there's anything that's bad about that. I think that's a good thing. And for Generation X, we're worried about taking care of our parents, taking care of our kids, having some sort of work-life flexibility, if at all possible. That's really important to us, and we look to our employer to be a potential resource to help us do that. And there's another thing I want to point out on this slide, which is that technology increases flexibility, but it also increases stress. I'm definitely a victim of that. I have a problem with work-life boundaries. If you know me at all, I just have a tendency to work, and just don't know where to stop because everything is mobile. You know, you have your cell phone, it's always on, it's a smartphone, you can always check email. The inability to unplug and the fact that we can work anywhere, to me, that's kind of good and bad. So we should educate our employees. We definitely want them to turn it off. We need for them to come back to work and be able to use their creative energy and to have energy to do the work that we need them to do. The other thing that's happening is jobs are being replaced by computers every day. I don't know how many of you have seen that. There's a new, Amazon, I think they're coming out with this technology where you can walk into a grocery store, pick something up, and walk right out without even having to interact with anyone or anything. And I don't think that that's widespread. I think they're piloting it right now from what I read. But my point is that if that were to happen, how many cashiers would lose their jobs? And knowing that technology is on the rise, that means that we're going to be depending on people, not necessarily for technology, but for creative thought and for energy to give us their creative thought. That's one thing that I feel like computers can never replace, is our creative thought. Earlier, I mentioned generations, and I feel like this chart shows us what is important to each generation, because all of us probably work in an environment where there's people of different ages. The one thing I thought was pretty interesting about this is that physical is at the top for all generations, right? So I think I'm in the right business. I feel good about that. All generations still feel like their physical well-being is the most important. But second on the list is emotional. And a lot of wellness programs, and I'll go into this later, the difference between EAPs and the difference between wellness programs. Some wellness programs do have some things in place to address the emotional part of the equation. Like we, for example, Mile High Fitness and Wellness, we do have some stress management programs. We have experts that can come in and help with that sort of thing. But we're definitely not licensed counselors like your EAP programs are. So if anyone needs any sort of medication or marriage therapy or any referral to any sort of psychiatric care, that's not something wellness programs can do. But definitely your EAP provider can. You can kind of look down the list and see how they rank their wellness priorities. And according to my research, sometimes these generations, we depend a lot of our employers for a great deal of help for this. So I thought that was interesting. And just in case you're interested in this source, this came from Everyday Health. So disengaged or unengaged workers oftentimes means that our workers are unproductive. This is what we don't want. We don't want someone sitting at their desk watching the clock, wondering when is it 5 o'clock, because they're thinking about what they're going to do when they leave. Absolutely no loyalty to the company, which is what we don't want. When an employee is unengaged, he or she simply is not going the extra mile in his or her work, and they're just not passionate about it anymore. Me as a business owner, I love people. I love working with people, but to be honest with you, unproductive employees, they're kind of a burden, right? They're an expense. We can't afford that. We're in business to make money, and unproductive employees are an expense. We just don't need it. So we've got to turn this around. I also want to point out on the bottom of this slide, there's a link that you can go to if you want from the World Health Organization, and it's a health and work performance questionnaire, different than an HRA. So I know most of you, if you do have wellness programs, you do screenings and HRAs once a year. But this talks about actually it asks open-ended questions, getting feedback in terms of what makes employees either not work or work harder when they're at work. So I thought that was an interesting questionnaire there. So what we want is to break down the wall of disengagement. What I've learned so much in working with individuals and small groups over the years is that change does not happen overnight. So when I talk to people about weight loss, and they're like, oh, I'm just so frustrated, I need to lose this extra, 15 pounds, and they get impatient and they're frustrated. And I always say, you didn't gain the weight overnight, so please don't expect to lose it overnight. It's much in the same way as trying to turn the tide of getting our employees back engaged in our program. It's not going to happen overnight, but it can happen, I guess I could say brick by brick, that looks like a brick wall, or step by step, right? Just small baby steps at a time. But we have to start by communicating with and relating to our employees by having shared values. This pictorial came from the Global Wellness Institute, and I love the fact that it shows two different cycles. The bottom right-hand cycle is the one we want. We want our employees to be healthy and happy and motivated and have a lot of energy. So they come to work and they are fulfilled and they feel joy when they come to work, and they have healthy habits when they're at work and at home. And what we don't want is the one on the top, which is a vicious cycle. We would rather have the virtuous cycle. That's great, but the vicious cycle is oftentimes what we see. We have employees that are unmotivated, they're not well, they're disengaged, they're tired, they're stressed out, and it's just a cycle. And I feel like we can come in and break the cycle. There was a poll that was done by Gallup that found that people who are engaged at work eat healthier, they exercise more frequently, and they eat more fruits and vegetables. And I think those are all things that we want. Those are all things that can actually curb the tide of chronic disease, which that's what's really driving up our insurance costs, is chronic illness, visits to the doctor, prescriptions, things like that. And if we can just, according to Gallup, where they found that people who are engaged at work eat healthier, exercise more frequently, and eat more fruits and vegetables, aren't those kind of like solutions to the chronic illness problem? Yeah, to me, it's the cheapest way to go. Towers-Watson, a national business group on health, found that productive employees have 25% lower obesity rates, 25% lower hypertension rates, and 50% lower diabetes rates. That was from Towers-Watson and the National Business Group on Health. When you think about it, we spend half of our waking hours at work. That's a lot. It should be a place of wellness, not a Band-Aid, but it should be integrated into the culture. We're at work every single day. Sometimes I feel like I work more than I do anything else other than sleep. So it should be a place where we can come to work and feel well. One of the first things that we can do in order to start this process is to create shared values. I talked about this earlier, right? I think it's a good thing when I see that companies create a shared vision for any of their wellness programs or initiatives. Like I talked about earlier, if all you have in place is a yoga class and a newsletter, that's great. It's definitely better than nothing. But you should create a shared vision for it so that everyone is on the same page for what the goals of it are. Everyone needs to be headed in the same direction. But what's even better than that is to include the importance of healthy and thriving employees in a shared vision for the company, not just for your wellness program, but we need to integrate it into the vision for the company. And for many of you on the call, you may or may not be at that level to where you can actually change the vision for the company, but I bet you that your leadership team is accessible, and I wonder if they would be open to doing that, because I don't know many wellness programs that are very successful without the buy-in of the leadership team. And I'll talk about leadership in a few minutes here. But earlier I talked about why they're not working, why wellness programs aren't working. And again, I know all of you can read, so I'll just point out a couple of things here that I want to focus on. One of the most important things I think on this list that I can mention is failing to get support from upper management. That's one of the biggest things I see. We have to get support from upper management. And then failing to reevaluate. So having a program in place and pushing it out there, but not getting feedback is I see that quite a bit, or not getting enough feedback. So this is I thought was an interesting list, and it was published in Benefits Magazine. They also said that the goal for the first couple of years of your program should be to increase employee participation and engagement. And then in later years, like maybe years 3 or 4, you can start looking for the cost savings. But again, it's not going to happen overnight. So I think being impatient, which is the number one thing on this list, is something that is a challenge, because wellness programs typically cost money, and you don't see the return right away. So what do we need to do? Well, the first thing is that we need to listen. Make sure that we're listening just as much as, or even more than we're talking, because engagement is a two-way street. It's the difference between someone talking at you and someone talking with you. When communication goes only one way, it's impersonal, it's ineffective, and it just leads to a dead end. Keep in mind that communicating about policies and procedures, and while I'm sure that there's some great policies and procedures out there, to be honest with you, they're probably not the funnest thing to read, right? They're just black and white, maybe kind of boring. People may or may not read every single word. But when you're communicating about wellness, on the other hand, that needs to be quite the opposite. So it needs to be fun, and it needs to be lighthearted. It needs to be engaging. People should want to do it. It should make them feel happy. We need to communicate about our program 7 times in 3 different ways. And the reason is because we're all busy. We all get too many emails. So to send out a couple of emails, this is not going to cut it. We have to communicate 7 times in 3 different ways. And it's interesting that this applies to wellness programs, because it also applies to a bunch of other things. As a business owner, I know that I can't send something out once and I can't do it the same way every time. So we use a lot of ways to communicate our wellness program. So how can we motivate our staff? How can we engage them? Well, the number one thing on the list that I wanted to mention is that we need to be helping our staff set smaller weekly goals. I find that really important. And through the years, as I've worked as a health coach and a trainer, et cetera, I've learned that people really tend to stick more to their goals when they're small and when they set them themselves with your help. So I worked with a company recently who was having an engagement problem, and I asked them how they were motivating people and how are they setting their goals, and they weren't doing anything like that at all, basically just sending out emails and putting up posters and things like that. But I said, what we need to do is get everybody in the same room. We need to give them some ideas for setting goals. So we did. We said, okay, what are some of the goals that people most commonly want to set when it comes to their health? Okay, weight loss, of course. So we said, okay, maybe one of the goals could be I want to lose 5 pounds next month. One of the goals could be, I want to run a 5K in June or whatever, right? So we gave them some ideas and then let them go for it. We gave them the structure, we gave them the process, and then had them create their own goals. We had 80% participation, 80%. And it's because they did it themselves, but we were a resource for them, and that's it. And it really did work. We were really excited about that. Also, I mentioned earlier about the millennial generation and how they really want to tie their purpose to their work. So I wonder if we can give our employees purpose, like actually help them tie what their purpose is to the work. And I don't think this applies just to millennials. It's come out recently because they're the largest generation right now, but I believe this probably applies to more generations than that. The other thing I want to mention is that I love it when I see managers walking around and getting to know their staff members one-on-one. When I worked in corporate America, and I look back and I say, which positions, which companies did I work for that I really loved? And all of them were the ones that I had a really good relationship with my manager. That mattered. That mattered to me, that they actually would ask me about my own life, and I could ask them about theirs. And they were transparent, and so was I. Even as I work with people one-on-one or in small groups, I have to open up about my own life, simply because many times if they don't complete the task we agreed on that they were going to complete, for example, working out 3 days last week or something like that, many times it's not because of the exercise itself. It's because of things that happened in their life that got in the way. What happened? Oh, I had a fight with my husband, or, my teenage daughter stayed out till 4 in the morning. I didn't know where she was, so I didn't work out the next day, or whatever. Those kinds of things are the things that matter to them. And so I had to be somewhat of a counselor when you think about it, and open up about my own life. Learning what makes them tick, letting them lead is really important as well. It doesn't have to be a big, huge project. Small little tasks. Just let them be the leader. Trust them. Show them that you trust them, and they will trust you back. Show them the bigger picture, like I mentioned before. Help them see the vision and how they fit in. And, of course, regular feedback. I read that 79% of engaged employees have trust and confidence in their leaders. I find that to be very, very exciting and very, very hopeful. If we can just get our employees to trust us, then they will engage with us. Also, I want to just share some information about how we learn. This is interesting to me because pretty much if we read something, we forget it because we only remember 10% of what we read. We remember 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, and look, it jumps to 70%. We remember 70% of what we discuss with others. I cannot express the importance of having some sort of way for people to socialize with each other at work. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. We remember 80% if we make it personal, and 95% of what we teach. So when we form our wellness committees, or we already have our wellness committees in place, we need to find those people who are not only passionate or even somewhat passionate about health and wellness, but they're willing to share their knowledge and their education with others. We work with a lot of companies who do have internal resources, and they're doing a great job of using them. But I wonder if programs could be more sustainable if the people that are in the position of being leaders on our wellness committees could teach others what they know, and then they can teach others what they know, and so forth. I mentioned earlier about the importance of leadership communication and support. Boy, I can't even stress this enough, how important it is that your leadership team is somehow engaged, someone on your leadership team. I know one time we worked with a hospital, and they were having a hard time, again, getting their folks engaged. And so we asked them what they had in place, and they already had walking groups in place. But for some reason, they just weren't getting people to participate as much as they wanted them to. And so I said, I wonder if you could involve someone from your leadership team in the walk, and I asked them, who's on your leadership team that's passionate about this? They said, oh, Linda. Linda loves this stuff. Great. Ask Linda if she can take 15 minutes a week. That's it. 15 minutes to go to participate in this walk. And I know the walk is like 30 minutes or 45 minutes, and it might be too much time for her to take away. But can she walk for 15 minutes once a week? They said, yeah, she probably would be willing to do that. Great. Asked her, she was all good with it. So we called it Wednesday Walk with Linda or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but something like that. And every Wednesday she would go out and walk with them for 15 minutes. And boy, did that increase participation. People want to see your leaders involved, and then they will participate. And when I think about that 15 minutes, it makes me think about when I work with people one-on-one or in groups, how I say, well, if you can't work out for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, just give me 10 minutes. That's it. Just give me that. And they say, oh, okay, I can do 10 minutes. Great. And then they come back and say, well, I started to do 10 minutes and I actually stayed on the treadmill for 20 minutes. Just getting it started, to me, is half the battle. So if we can get them started with Linda being there, or whoever, on your team, on your leadership team, for just a little bit, then I think that people will engage and participate and keep it going. So moving into the 6 dimensions of wellness model, I wanted to kind of lay the framework for what it is. It's a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. In short, wellness is an active process of becoming aware of and making choices toward a healthy and fulfilling life. So that's what I define as being a good definition for well-being. I'd like to look at a person from a holistic perspective, and I feel like the 6 dimensions of wellness model really addresses that. And if we can involve our EAP program in our wellness program, then I think that we're taking the right steps. So I have another poll question. I would love to know how many of you guys currently have an EAP program in place. And I'll give you a few seconds to respond.
There are quite a few of them. The majority of people are saying they have an EAP program.
Okay, great. That's great. That's good for me to know. I want to go into the EAP program integrated with the wellness program soon, but I did want to just introduce the 6 dimensions model. There's a lot of models out there for wellness. I understand that. I get that. I chose this one from the National Wellness Institute. I really admire that organization, and I really love this model. To me, it addresses all the aspects of wellness that matter to most people, to most generations. There's the occupational, physical, social, intellectual, spiritual, and emotional. So occupational is what I talked about earlier. We want to connect and be part of a company, and we want to have our career be consistent with our own personal values and interests, right? We want to have functional and transferable skills. These days, nobody wants to stay in the same position for long, I don't think, especially the millennial generation. So we need to make sure that we're helping them with this particular dimension. The physical dimension, there's a lot of things that I could say around physical, including things like working out and fitness classes and things like that. But the baseline of it is that we need to be able to monitor our vital signs and listen to our own bodies. What are the warning signals? How do we measure our blood pressure? Are we monitoring it? Do we know what our sugar levels are? And then once we realize, or once we're able to determine what some of those biometrics are, then we can take steps that are needed to improve our physical wellness. The other thing I do when it comes to physical is help people understand which stage of change that they're in. There's the trans-theoretical stages of change model, which some of you might be familiar with. And it helps determine where someone is in terms of their commitment to, in this case, to their physical wellness. And it's just kind of a side note. If you want to check out the trans-theoretical model. It's actually a psychological model that helps counselors and trainers and coaches with sustainable behavior change. And then there's the social dimension of wellness, which means we're encouraging people to contribute to their own environment and to their own community. The other thing I'm going to mention about social, in addition to being part of a larger community, people want to connect with people, with other people that share the same values. So how can we do that? How can we implement a social dimension at work? Well, I just heard about a campaign that a company did. It's called Swap It to Drop It. I thought that was a good name, helping people understand what to drop and what to swap in for, like dropping Pepsi and drinking tea instead, for example. And they encouraged people to post something on a private Facebook group or something like that when they had a good idea, what they did that day, what they swapped out that day, what they dropped and what they swapped in. I know a lot of companies have private Facebook pages, for example. The social media industry has billions of users for a reason, and that's because people are social. We're social animals. And so if you can somehow create some sort of private Facebook group or even a Twitter account, and when you have meetings and ask people to tag your company, those things matter because people are social and we all use social media. I think so. I think most of us use social media. So it's just something that's integrated in something that we're doing already anyway. I mentioned earlier about walking groups. I love that. Running groups. We just introduced a new running program, and I'm hoping that that would help with this dimension. It's just creating small running groups, and people can prepare and run a 5K together, for example. A healthy recipe group is another thing that I've seen implemented out there. People can bring in new recipes that they've learned. The other three dimensions of wellness are intellectual, spiritual, and emotional. And intellectual just means that we're allowing people to learn and to grow, and we're helping them to do that. So we're understanding what they're interested in and helping them to grow those talents and grow those gifts and share them with others. Spiritual is that we recognize our search for meaning and our purpose in human existence. So it's better to live each day in a way that's consistent with our values and beliefs than to do otherwise and feel untrue to ourselves. When employees are unengaged or disengaged, I wonder if it's because there's no connection there between what they feel like they're here to do and their job. We spend so much time at work, I think it would be good to have that connection. And then the last one is emotional, and that just recognizes awareness and acceptance of one's feelings. Emotional wellness includes the degree to which one feels positive and enthusiastic about oneself and life. So if someone is having emotional struggles, do you think that that's going to affect their productivity and their performance at work? I believe it will. And there's things that we can help them. There's programs in place that can help them to manage those challenges. I'm a big fan of EAPs, and it sounds like most of you have EAP programs and can read through this definition. And since you all have them, you probably don't need to know the definition. You already know. But according to what I read from SHRM, less than 5% of employees use EAPs. And it's mostly due to a lack of knowledge and communication about the program. But there's also a small stigmatism that's still there, that EAPs are there to help people with drug and alcohol use because that's where they started. Part of it is because people don't know that EAPs can help them with these kinds of problems. The other problem is the trust factor that I mentioned earlier. Even when I worked for a company, I didn't use the EAP because I thought that my manager was going to find out about it. If we can somehow communicate more broadly and more often about our EAP and even integrate the EAP into our wellness program, because if we want to promote all of those dimensions that I talked about earlier, including the emotional dimension, then we've got to drive our employees to using our EAPs more. In my opinion, that's my opinion. Because EAPs have come a long way. You know, we partner with EAPs right now to offer fitness and nutrition coaching, for example. And so they've come a long way. And EAPs are, right, and I just have to throw out Minds and Associates. They're my friends. I love them. So if you're ever looking for an EAP provider, I love Minds and Associates. I found this chart to be interesting, and this came from the Journal of Employee Assistance Programs. And it shows the difference between EAPs and wellness. And you can kind of read through it yourself, but I think the basic, I guess the main point that I want to get across is that wellness programs are generally known to help with lifestyle changes, right? So your diet, your nutrition, your physical activity program, I think that they're growing. Like our company, we do a lot more than that. We do massage and stress management. But EAPs, they have trained counselors that they have mental health and social work training. So it's just a different level of help that we can offer our staff if we can just get them to use it. Wellness programs tend to focus on cardiovascular health and lifestyle changes, whereas EAPs focus on comorbidity awareness, assessment and management, crisis, addiction, things like that. So I'm really a big proponent of EAPs. I feel like they're just going to do nothing but grow and help us overall in our wellness program. So 3 questions to ask as I wrap up. What programs that you have in place, the programs that you do have in place, do they help people achieve their full potential? Do they recognize and address the whole person? So a multidimensional approach, not just fitness, not just nutrition, but what can we do to address the whole person holistically? And does it affirm and mobilize people's positive qualities and strengths? That's what we want to draw out. Everyone has something to contribute. Everyone has positive qualities and strengths. And if we can just pull that out, I feel like we could make a stronger, higher engagement numbers, stronger wellness program, and ultimately increase our return on our investment and increase our value on investment, which is our VOI. We can do both of those. So three points I just want to make to wrap up here. Number 1, get to know your staff if you haven't already. I know that some of you out there do, because as I attend conferences and I attend meetings and I'm networking, I'm always asking people, what does your wellness program look like? And they say, if they say things like, oh, we have a great program and I love my company and they just love the role that they're in, then I know that part of it has to do with their relationship with their manager. I can almost guarantee it. We need to help them create their own personal goals, like I talked about earlier, and then creating shared values is so important. So just some information about what we do, and I guess, I don't know if there's questions, but maybe after this I can answer some. But this is just a summary of what we do. We do corporate wellness programs. A lot of our solutions involve on-site fitness classes. We do a lot of lunch and learns, cooking classes, challenges, consulting, training and education. I just really have a passion for helping people get healthy, and that means that I need to work with companies because people are at work for most of the day, like we talked about. And then we also have a personal side where we go into the home and we go into the schools. We have a lot of school districts that we work with. So we work with kids and we work with seniors and all of those kinds of things. I'm just really excited to be able to help people. And if you want to reach me, this is all of my information here. Our website is milehighfitness.com. Feel free to reach out using any one of these methods. I really appreciate your time today. I hope that I said something that is helpful for you in your own workplace wellness program. And thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Kim. That was wonderful. If anybody has some questions, we have a few minutes. You can post them now and we'll respond to them. And just to let you know, just a reminder, we did record the session so you can share it with other colleagues or people who might be interested in the topic. And we can send a follow-up with the contact information for Kim as well. So you can contact her directly if you want to know more about the slides that she used and the references and the resources that she used to create her slides, because she gave a lot of really great information that's really helpful. And if you need other information or have other questions, you can always contact me as well, and I can connect you that way. So you can reach me at michelle.hahn@healthlinkscertified.org, and you can find my information on our website as well. And Kim, it doesn't
Are there
look
any questions? No?
Nope, no
Oh, no
questions are
questions?
coming in.
Okay.
That's great.
Well,
Thank you again, everybody. Oh, wait, maybe there is another one. Oh, they're just saying thank you in the chat box. Thank
oh,
you,
okay.
everybody, for taking the time out of your day to join us today. We really appreciate you being here. Thank you, Kim, for taking your time and giving a great presentation with a lot of really helpful information for us as we move forward. Just to let everybody know, our next webinar will be January 19th, and I love that it falls directly in line with this webinar because Kim talked a lot about purpose and what it means to match individual purpose with the overall vision for the company. And we're having Ascent Life Planning give a presentation talking all about discovering our dreams and purpose and taking that approach to a wellness program, more of the holistic side. So you can register for that webinar on our website as well, and we'll send out more details in the coming weeks. Thanks again, everybody. Stay warm out there in this snowy weather, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Kim.